Hello and welcome to Joy News Prime, live from our studio here in Accra. We're live on DSTV channel 42 and GoTV channel 125. Around the world on myjoyonline.com. Coming up this hour, controversy over the exact number of Ghanaian students who have benefited from the free senior high school program, as the Minister of Education cast doubt over the numbers churned out by the NPP government.
One of the very first major issues the country must interrogate is statistical validity of how many Ghanaians have benefited from free senior high school.
Details as the immediate past education minister contradicts Akufo-Addo on the exact numbers that benefited from the program.
1.10 million children having so far benefited from this SHS policy.
Today, some 5.7 million children who are our own children, brothers and sisters, have benefited from the program.
We have more as we fact-check the free SHS beneficiary data here on the Joy News Prime. Also coming up, payment of wages, salaries and social contributions could cost the government some 71.1 billion cedis this year. We'll break down the figures and analyze Ghana's debt servicing costs and fiscal burden. Also coming up, Supreme Court adjourns indefinitely NDC's case against Tema Central, Okaikwe Central and Techiman South, as well as Ablekuma North coalition. As it emerges, none of the defendants are served 3 weeks after filing of suit. Details as the court, in the same fashion, sets aside another case filed by the MPP to set aside an injunction on the Ablekuma seat because the NDC also served the defendant.
We are simply saying that what the court did was wrongful, so the Supreme Court should question what the court has done and then prohibit the judge from hearing any case involving an Eskumi.
Now, President John Dramani Mahama has sworn in the first batch of his ministers some 24 hours after receiving parliamentary approval. Among them is the man tasked with managing Ghana's finances and allocating national resources, the Finance Minister, Dr. Kesela Forson. As Dr. Forson prepares to officially step into this critical role, the financial road ahead is already looking challenging. Now, key expenditure line items for the year are projected to exceed 286 billion cedis, a burden that could define the nation's fiscal outlook. Joy News Research has been crunching the numbers, analyzing data, and joining us now with details is our lead data and research analyst here at Joy News, Isaac Kofi Ajay. Kofi, what are the big ticket items driving this financial burden?
Yesterday, when the president sworn in the 6 ministers, the finance minister was the first to take, when they were, taking turns in signing, he was the first. That tells you the weight that they put on his job. He is the man going to control the resources, the allocation of the country's resources. Now, let's look at the projected, expected revenues and grants for 2025 that this man, Dr. Kesela Forson, is going to work with. 206 billion Ghana cedis is the projected figure by the IMF that the country might, be able to bring in 206 billion Ghana cedis. Note that this is without factoring the fact that they are going to scrap e-levy and a number of taxes. We will wait to see how that number will pan out. But if you look at, 4 big expenditure line items that we have been looking at, and if you look at the revenue versus just 4 expenditure line items, it's 284 or 86 billion Ghana cedis that we are looking at. What are these, expenditure line items?
So there's a
contribute about 139% of the expected revenue. So definitely, just like you want to say, there will be a shortfall, budget deficit, and how is the government going to fund that? Now, the 4 taxes or the 4 revenues that we are talking about, the first one or the 4 expenditure line items that are big on the budget or to feature on the 2025 budget is the first one is the wages and salaries, or what we know as compensation of employees. 71.1 billion Ghana cedis is the projected figure that the country must look for to pay workers in 2025. Next, expenditure line item is debt servicing obligation. Note that the country actually suspended its debt servicing obligation starting from 2023 to 2026. We have some moratorium, but we will be paying debt, especially in the domestic space, some of the DDP arrangement that we have, majority of them will be maturing this year. We have to pay. How much is it in total, external and domestic? We are looking at 184.7 billion Ghana cedis. Last one, Kojo, has to do with transfers to the energy sector. The president said that they have solved the looming energy sector crisis. But how much is the IMF expecting that government should transfer to energy sector producers in 2025 to make sure that they keep the light on? The amount is on the screen, 17.5 billion Ghana cedis. So we did the math and we realized that just 4 expenditure line items could take about 140% of what we're expecting as revenue. Already, this is the only finance minister. Note that he will not have access to the international capital market in his first year. There will be no Eurobonds, no $3 billion to go and borrow. Again, note that as a result of the DDP, this is a finance minister who will not have access to a full-fledged, bond market. The only domestic market that he is going to have access to will be the treasury bill market. And we know that when government is heavy in the treasury bill market, definitely businesses will suffer. So that huge deficit we saw, it will be interesting to see how government will fund that.
Quite interesting. Now, there's also controversy over the exact number of Ghanaian students who have benefited from the SRL MPP government's flagship free SHS program. As the Minister of Education, Haruna Iddrisu, is casting doubt over the numbers churned out by the NPP government. Now, he explains that there is the need for the validation because of the contradictions in the figures the immediate past education minister and the former president, Akufo-Addo, have put out. According to Haruna Iddrisu, there has to be an audit into the program to validate the numbers and understand what the exact issues are with the program. We'll hear from him shortly. But first, the former president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and the former education minister have, been putting out conflicting figures regarding the free SHS program.
10 million children having so far benefited from this SHS policy since it was instituted in September 2017.
When it was said free senior high school was impossible, the government went ahead to prove otherwise, and today, some 5.7 million children who are our own children, brothers and sisters, have benefited from the program.
Some 503,000 children enter senior high school this year, the highest ever enrollment of children into senior high school in a single year in our history.
Well, according to Haruna Iddrisu, these figures do not align with the evidence he has reviewed, prompting his call for a proper validation process to aid in effective planning.
But one of the very first major issues the country must interrogate is statistical validity of how many Ghanaians have benefited from free senior high school. My research does not give me any number beyond 3.9 million students. But in the public domain, and even in the record of Parliament, I hear 5.1 million. We need a validation of that record. But I will say mine is right. But whoever was working with 5.1 million probably was misleading then president. Because I've looked at the numbers from 2017 to 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, and I'm convinced that the number of people who have benefited from free senior high school stands at not more than 3.9 million Ghanaians. But I need a validation of that data.
Now, we will engage education think tanks to who have been monitoring the free SHS program, as well as share insight from our own research on the numbers of individuals who have benefited so far. Joining me again in the studio is Isaac Kofi, a data analyst with Joy Research Desk. Kofi, what do we know so far from the numbers that we've been gleaning?
Well, so Kojo, the minister is asking for validation, and this is what we have done. So, mind you, the president has actually revised his numbers. He's now standing on the same podium with the education minister. So, the current claim is 5.7 million, according to what he said in his last sonner to the country. This is a number that we are going to validate. And Haruna Iddrisu, who is the current education minister, he says that he doesn't think that any number in terms of the total number of beneficiaries should exceed 3.9 million people. That is the data that we are going to validate. And per our analysis and validation, what did we find? Is it the 3.9 million people or the president and his education ministers? 5.7, the former president. You know, what we found was that what the former president claims, that 5.7 million beneficiaries, is so high. I mean, it's way above the actual number in terms of what we were able to glean from the Ministry of Information as well as the Ministry of Finance, who are actually the custodian of some government, data. The figure we found is roughly around 3.05 million people who have actually benefited from the free SHS program. How did we do this? We looked at the enrollment data from the inception year to the most current data that we have, or the most recent academic year, and you can see the numbers on your screen. 2017-2018 academic year was the year that the free SHS program was actually introduced. This is the total number of students who benefited, somewhere around 362,000 students. You can see, I mean, there's been improvement, and President former President Akufo-Addo talks about that unprecedented number of 509,000 enrollment in 2024. In fact, if you go to the 2021 and I think 2022 mid-year budget, you will know that the government was actually calculating the total number of beneficiaries by just adding the number of enrollment. Then somewhere along the line, somewhere 2023, 2024, they changed their arithmetics. We do not know what method they are using, but we understand that, I mean, when they started the program, this was how government was calculating. They add every year's enrollment numbers, and that was what they were calling the total number of beneficiaries. Until then, they were not using this current formula that is given as the 5.7 million. But what we did was that we just added the enrollments from 2017 to 2024, and that gives you that rough average of 3.5 million Ghanaians, and not the 5.7 million being mentioned by the former president and his minister. What we also know is that in terms of the expenditure, we know the education ministry is the most expensive ministry to run. Why? Because there are elements in the basic school budget, free SHS budget, which is now crossing somewhere 3 billion Ghana cedis. The free senior high school, in fact, if you add all the budgetary allocations and the total amount that has been spent, across somewhere maybe, let's say, roughly 16 billion Ghana cedis. But in terms of the actual number or total number of beneficiaries, it is not the 5.7 million students claimed by the former president. Okay.
Also joining us via Zoom is Dr. Peter Anti. He is Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, IFEST. Doc, grateful for joining us here. Now, what do you know about the numbers involved in the free SHS program? Does your independent assessment correspond with the 5.7 million as put out by the previous government?
Good evening, and I hope you are doing well. Greetings to your viewers too. I think that we have challenge with, let me start by saying that we have challenge with data in this country. So normally you wouldn't want to resort to one source to make a point as to whether the information that is being given out is correct or not. So in the kind of way that we do, normally we want to do data triangulation. You look for multiple sources to see whether there's some sort of convergence in terms of the data that you are arriving at. So we have been checking the data, and it seems that that number 5.7 and the earlier one that was giving us 5.1 is a strange number to us from all official documents that we have assessed. And you look at the placement, the school placements, every year they place students, and they give you a number around 3.4 million. That is the closest number to the number from the Ministry of Finance, which is 3.1. So if you look at it, you might be able to say that, yes, some people are placed, but they are not able to enroll. So that seems a little bit okay. If you want to look at it from the point of view of those who have written BEC, that number is around 4.1. And it's understandable because not all those who write BEC are able to enroll. So normally the number of BEC candidates that write the exams would be higher than those who enroll. And that is around 4.3. Okay. And then if you go to the Ministry of Education's MS data and you add the enrollment figures that they have, and that one too is a little bit problematic because the data is sourced from the schools. And sometimes you know that I've already indicated that there should be an audit even of the school placement, the number of students that are placed in various schools, there should be an audit for you to know the actual figure. They put the figure around 4.1.
Okay.
So if you look at the 4 data points that I've given you, the Ministry of Education, WAEC, Ministry of Finance, and the MS data, it tells you that none of them is close to the 5.1 or the 5.6. What you get close to is somewhere around the 3.4, the 3.1, and of course the number that you are also putting on, which is around the 3.1. So it means that actually there's some sort of convergence around the 3.1, 3.4 that we can all work with. And I think that the call by the minister to do some sort of auditing to ascertain the actual figures that we are dealing with is very, very important, because it calls for planning and it influences budgeting and other things. So if you don't get the numbers right, you're going to have problems with the plans that you are going to make for the particular students. I mean, the students. Yeah.
So just before we came on, I was trying my hand on the numbers. If you divide the 3.045 that we got by the amount that they've spent on free SHS, a spend on a student over the period is around 5,000. In terms of doing validation, what should be the critical point that we should be looking at?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to look at is, as you indicated, you need to ascertain how much is spent on each student. I think the last time I also checked, it seems that every semester government is spending somewhere around 1,200, 1,300 for each student. That is every semester. So if you put the 2 semesters together, you're looking at somewhere around 2,500 for a year. Now you need to check that figure. How much are you spending on each student, and what goes into all the amount that you are spending on each student? The amount you are spending on students in terms of the boarding will be different from those that are doing day school. Okay, so you need to check that. You also need to ascertain the actual number of students that are placed in the various secondary schools, and that is very, very important, because the data comes from the schools. So if you are not able to check that data that is being given to you from the placement unit and the school data that is already on the field, it becomes very difficult for you to have a balance in terms of the budgeting that you are doing. So you should do an auditing of the actual number of students that have been admitted in each of the secondary schools that we have in the country. Then maybe you want to look at, if you break the 1,500 or 1,200 down, what are the elements that goes into this? Exams, fees, uniform, clothes, all those things. You need to know what goes into it, because you have to plan and know which elements you think are causing or are shooting the figures up, and which elements you think are not giving you much stress as a government. So these are the kind of analysis that you would need to do in order to ensure that you have a clear idea of the budgeting that you are doing for the students, which elements are causing the figures to shoot up, and which elements you can manage in going forward. So there's a whole lot of audits that the government would have to do to be able to be sure that they are really having value for money.
Okay. Grateful to you, Dr. Anti, for joining us here. Dr. Peter Anti, the Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies. Away from that, let's take it to Parliament, where the Minority Leader, Alexander Feyomarkin, has called on President John Mahama to apologize to Ghanaians and appoint more than 60 ministers. It will be recalled that on the campaign trail, the then NDC flag bearer and our president promised to appoint not more than 60 ministers. This is a promise he has affirmed he will stick to. Speaking on the floor of Parliament during the debate on the approval of ministers, Alexander Feyomarkin insisted that it will be hard to govern with 60 ministers, urging the president to honestly apologize to Ghanaians and appoint more.
The number of ministers. We are seeing Minister for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. The political class of this country must be bold and own the political narrative. I will not criticize because I am in opposition. When we make mistakes, let's admit them and apologize. 60 ministers will not help your political cause. But when civil society comes out with the narrative, as if everything is done by the political class, instead of us boldly explaining to them the intricacies of politics, then we also fall for the trap and we make political commitment. I don't doubt the competence of Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim, but that huge ministry, local government, and chieftaincy, all these conflicts, the behind the scenes, negotiations for peace, and local governance. Mr. Speaker, I am not the president, but if I were to advise Mr. President, I would say, Mr. President, you can apologize to Ghanaians and say, look, you underestimated the thing. I think I need to engage more ministers. Because, Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow this.
It's now official. Boko Central MP Mahama Ayarga has officially assumed the only black seat in the majority pews of Parliament. Mahama Ayarga has taken over from Dr. Kesela Tufosun, who is now the finance minister. As majority leader, the NDC has reconstituted its front benches following the appointment of 4 out of the 5 leaders as ministers. In a letter addressed to the Speaker, General Secretary of the NDC, Fifi Fiavi Kwete, informed the Speaker about the changes. Here is the Speaker reading the communication on the floor.
In accordance with the established parliamentary procedures and practice, I write to formally inform you of the selection of the leaders of the Majority Caucus for the 9th Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Pursuant to this, and following extensive deliberation by the National Executive Committee and in consultation with the NDC Majority Caucus, we have designated the following honorable members to the leadership positions on the majority front bench. 1. Majority Leader, Honorable Mahama Ayarga, MP for Boko Central. 2. Deputy Majority Leader, Honorable George Kweku Ricketts Hagan, MP for Cape Coast South. 3. Majority Chief Whip, Honorable Roxton Nelson Kwame Eche Dafiamapo, MP for South Dai. 4. First Deputy Majority Whip, Honorable Comfort Doyo Kujo, MP for Adan. And 5. Second Deputy Majority Whip, Honorable Richard Achampon, MP for Bia East.
Now, the former majority leader, who is now Ghana's finance minister, reflected on his 2-year leadership of the NDC caucus.
Mr. Speaker, I'm equally grateful to you, Right Honorable Speaker, for your fatherly guidance throughout my tenure as the leader of the NDC caucus. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity to address this House as its leader for the final time. Today marks the official conclusion of my journey within the leadership ranks of this august House. It has been a remarkable period during which I transitioned from minority leader, majority leader. With this address, I formally take my leave as the leader of the NDC Supermajority Caucus this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, allow me this moment to extend my deepest gratitude to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama the National Chairman of the NDC, Honorable Johnson Esiedun Katia, the General Secretary of the NDC, the Honorable Fifi Fiavikwete, and the entire functional executives of the National Democratic Congress. Leading the NDC Parliamentary Caucus has been an honor of the highest order. Mr. Speaker, the unwavering support and the collaboration of colleagues is a privilege I have never taken for granted. Together, we have risen above our differences, weathered the storm of transition, and forged a formidable and victorious front. Right Honorable Speaker, we celebrate our collective achievement. Let us remain steadfast in our commitment to even a brighter future for our country.
Now, Minority Leader Afenyo Marking urged the new leadership to prioritize consensus building in the House.
People don't know how great our friendship is, but you were always getting under my skin. And I know now, as a minister, our political fight will take a different form. This time, you'd have to come and defend your government policy. To the incoming team, led by my senior at the bar, my respected colleague, Mahama Ayariga. We served together in ECOWAS Parliament. You were very supportive. You've earned the respect of your colleagues in the sub-region. I know that you built consensus. In fact, Honorable Ayariga, there's something I've learned from you, and I want to share. You don't mind how long it takes to negotiate, to bring peace. And that I've learned with a great deal of respect. I believe that even as majority leader, you would not assume that you have the numbers, so you have to railroad matters on this House floor. I pray that you continue with that skill so that together we ensure the peace of this House by assisting Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, the new majority leader, Mahama Ayariga, is promising to carry the MPP along despite its very small numbers in the House.
I'm thankful for the confidence reposed in me, fully aware that this is an onerous role. I intend to discharge it to the best of my ability. Our duty as legislators is to ensure that we do all we can for the betterment of the people of Ghana. As leaders of the House, as a leader of the House, I have an abiding duty to ensure that we always stand on the side of Ghanaians. Right Honorable Speaker, this is my charge to keep and a duty I will faithfully discharge. As leader of the House, I am committed to working hard to ensure that members work in an environment that is more conducive, convenient, and friendly. We are the representatives of the people of Ghana for a reason. Let us always be guided by this, that way we will carve a place for ourselves in the annals of our dear country.
This is Your News Prime. We'll take a break here. We will be back. Please do stay. Welcome back from the break. Now, the government has provided 1 million Ghana cedis to support victims of the January 2, 2025 fire disaster that ravaged the Kantamanto market here in Accra. The donation fulfilled a promise made by President John Dramani Mahama when the Kantamanto Traders Association, representing 13 groups, visited him shortly after he assumed office. The Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, presented a donation on behalf of the President and assured the traders of the government's commitment to rebuilding the market into a modern, multi-purpose facility designed to improve trading activities and ensure better safety measures. Watch the interaction between the Chief of Staff and the Chairman of the Kantamanto Traders Association, Reverend Opoku Afre, who expressed gratitude for the government support on behalf of the affected groups.
Parliamentary candidate for the NDC in the Akwetia constituency, Henry Boachi Yadom, on 31st December 2024 filed an election petition case at the High Court in Koforidua and sought for an interim injunction to prevent the swearing-in of the NPP's candidate, Ernest Kumi. This was after the Electoral Commission declared Ernest Kumi winner of the Akwetia constituency elections. The court on January 2 granted the injunction application. The NPP subsequently filed a case at the Supreme Court asking the Apex Court to overturn the decision. Despite pending determination of the matter, the Electoral Commission went ahead to gazette Ernest Kumi among 274 others as MP-elect and subsequently sworn in by Parliament on January 7. When the case was called in court, the Supreme Court revealed that the court's records indicate that the NPP has failed to serve the suit on the NDC. The court proceeded to adjourn the case indefinitely. Here's Director of Legals for the NPP, Gary Nimako.
It was filed on 31st of December 2024. The Court of Action has not accrued. But the court decided not to, hear the prayer of Mr. Kumi, and then proceeded to say that, well, there is a publication by Dr. Bosuma Asare in the media. And so we relied on the publication to say that there is Gazette. Well, as a matter of fact, we now all know that Gazette was done on the 6th of January 2025. So we are simply saying that what the court did was wrongful. So the Supreme Court should question what the court has done and then prohibit the judge from hearing any case involving Ernest Kumi.
The Supreme Court, in a separate matter but in the same fashion, also adjourned indefinitely the National Democratic Congress's case against the coalition of Tema Central, Okaikwe Central, Techiman South, and Ablikman North indefinitely. The NDC filed a case seeking to overturn the decision of an Accra High Court which granted a mandamus application filed by the NPP, which allowed for the coalition and declaration of Okaikwe Central, Tema Central, and Techiman South result, with Ablikman North yet to be determined. Both parties are expected to serve each other before the cases could continue. From the Supreme Court in Accra, I am James Aveji for Joy News.
Well, sorry for the mishap there, but the story you just watched has to do with the Supreme Court adjourning indefinitely two separate cases involving the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party, as both parties failed to serve the suit on each other. In the first case, the NPP filed a suit asking the Supreme Court to overturn an injunction secured by the NDC on the already declared Akwetia elections. The other case is the NDC suit against an Accra High Court's ruling which allowed for the coalition of Tema Central or Okaikwe Central and Techiman South resort. But there was a surprising turn of event in court when it also emerged that both parties failed to serve the writs on each other. So that was the report you saw there. But let's now watch the interaction between the Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, when the traders from Kantamanto paid a courtesy call on him, in which government then gave them 1 million cedis to support, what happened to them.
Saa 25 posts na on the beba abaye no man hwe ya je adwadefo ne eto ye say ei sika wen ye mu se nekura de be di aboye ne e be da nye sika koto por akoma 25 tie be sere ya duru ha ya o mampani twa ye kwan se ye mra ho nchen de ye sere wa ne se ye be hia transformer bi ne hia post na on se ye nto no
aba sei na se bi omani atutu atom nsem no ejapade ontimi nka se oronso onka hwe because amanfo bi gra na bi aba 50 200 100 enti omapani so se oni na ban ejina Ghana fo nyina na mu epe sika pudu enamafo de no 1 million Ghana cedis atosu biam so ye o kasa mu na am so kan bibi se ne mu akasa mu ahye bibi ase se development in phases sinka hamunum bema ye hu eno ehun hyehyɛ e wo ho ne bibi sa say aban no so betimi adwenkyira ye wo ho no na ye de aban.
Well, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice Dominic Ayine has reviewed plans to assess the docket on social activist Oliver Barker-Vormawor, hinting that the treason felony charge against him may be dropped following the review. In February 2022, Oliver Barker-Vormawor was arrested and charged with treason felony following a post he made on social media believed to be a threat to stage a coup if the government of President Akufo-Addo proceeded with its plans to pass the controversial e-levy. Dominic Ayine also stated that he will be meeting with the Operational Recover All Loot Committee on Monday. During the meeting, he will be briefed on the progress of their work and take delivery of the information they have gathered so far.
Well, with respect to the charges against Oliver, I'll definitely also study the docket. The statement that he made is one that was made in the media. The docket has been built, and I will study the docket, and based upon my own opinion of whether or not they are trumped up charges, I may, drop the charges. All right, I'm not going to, stand here and assure you that I'm definitely going to drop the charges, not having read the docket, and come to an opinion as to whether or not the charges were properly laid and should be dropped. So basically, the oral committee and I will be meeting somewhere early next week, most likely on Monday, and I will be briefed by them I'll be briefed by them in respect of what they have gathered so far, and of course, I will take over the information that they have. Listen carefully. I'm saying information that they have gathered. Information is different from evidence that can be used in a court of law. And I wanted to let you know that in our manifesto, we promised to reopen investigations into the murder of Ahmed Swali. It is stated there in black and white, and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama on the campaign trail, said it several times, and you can see from the marching orders that he gave all of us today, and specific to myself, that accountability is one of the underpinning.
This is Joy News Prime. We'll take a break here. We'll be back with Showbiz to stay. All right, time for us to do Showbiz now, and Becky Bex joins with all the gist that you need from that sector. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How you doing?
I'm well.
Let's begin with my ministry, because the Minister Designate for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Abla-Jifa Gomashi, has suggested that a restructuring of the ministry needs to be considered. Abla-Jifa Gomashi made the statement when she appeared before the Appointment Committee of Parliament for her vetting on Wednesday. Here are some highlights from her vetting brace. She already spoke about.
So one, she says a restructuring.
Yeah, and two,
of the ministry will be important. That will be done. Two, he says the Morley National Park for years has been a place which is usually visited, so there will be properly. There will be there's the need for proper investment into the area. He says I'll be pushing for that agenda. And taxes have been the cry of the hospitality industry when I used to host the event. And I was not even in the ministry as a deputy minister. I've emceed a lot of shows for the sector. And it is an issue that we should collectively deal with.
She also says that the review of the culture policy is long overdue, and she is happy that it has been done. She also mentioned that she will take a critical look at the Creative Arts Agency and its functions and see how best she can make it work. So these are some of the highlights. You can, you know, check out more on this particular story on myjoyonline.com. But moving away from that, let's talk about Diana Hamilton, because she has launched her 11th edition of her Awake Experience. We were there, and Nicholas Ekoyamwa has a report for you this evening.
After a successful 10th edition, the Awake Experience is here again with its 11th. The 2025 Awake Experience with Diana Hamilton, which was launched on Monday, promises to inspire and transform lives with its central theme, Move, drawn from Deuteronomy 1 verses 6. This edition will grace 3 cities in Ghana, that is Accra on 16th February at the ICGC Christ Temple East in Teshi, Kumasi on 23rd February at Bantamasi OP, and Sunyani on March 2nd, 2025 at the Uzbet Hotel Auditorium. Speaking at the launch, some industry players and artists shared their expectations ahead of the event.
Thank you, Auntie Diana, for having me in Accra. This is my first time in Accra. I've been having experience. I've been on experience for on three different occasions, but all in Kumasi. So this is my first time in Accra, and I'm excited that we've also moved.
What we have experienced before, I know that God is going to increase it and do it 1,000 folds. And so we'll wait upon Him. And anybody who will step either in Accra, Kumasi, or Sunyani will not go back same as you enter into the auditorium. God will do anything. 2025, I believe and trust God, and He will not forsake His people.
It's going to be a really great move of the Lord. Anybody who really wants to experience God tangibly, come and you will have that experience.
I've featured how, and I'm dreaming God, lift up your hands and let your name alone be glorified. But how it will happen, I don't know. Only God. The only thing I can do is to pray and avail myself and the Spirit of God taking control over my ministration. It's my prayer that ministering, God will heal, God will restore, God will comfort, God will let those who thought their life has come to an end. There is hope.
I kind of like what the team has put together in terms of the artist lineup for Accra, Kumasi, and Sunyani respectively. Cindy Thompson has been away from the limelight for quite a while, but she still has one of the biggest albums ever. And for me, I'm delighted to see Cindy Thompson, Kofi Sapong, Owusu Pepra, Mabel Ochi in Kumasi, and then let's look out for Kwame Jedu in Kumasi as well. That's one of the high-rising artists that we should look out for. So I'm pretty much excited for everybody who has been listed for performances from here to Sunyani.
Now, what should fans expect from Diana Hamilton herself?
The move. It was a word God gave me. I'm a Christian and I walk in the steps of Christ. And Jesus Christ's move has been from his Judea to Samaria from Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria to the uttermost part of the world. It's been stages. And this year we went to God asking him what to do, what next to do, what to do, where we're going. And he said, it's time to move. And he said, you've dwelt on this mountain for too long. It's now time to move. And there was this uneasiness. And God said, let's move. They should expect the Jesus in me to be at work in ways that they haven't experienced before. That's it.
The Awake Experience with Diana Hamilton will feature a distinguished lineup of gospel ministers, including Pastor Joe Bichem, Cindy Thompson, Uncle Ato, Team Eternity, Kofi Owusu Pepra, Kwame Jedu, ACP Kofi Sapong, Mabel Ochi, Kweku Tei, Sandy Asare, Elder Emmanuel Awache, and many more. Nicholas Ekoyamwa's report for Joy News.
This is an event that you don't want to miss. I know that you'll be attending the Accra.
In Accra.
Yeah.
If she had added Takrade, I would have. But
hopefully next year.
When is she?
Okay. Hopefully.
Because she has to add Takrade to it.
Yeah, hopefully next year. But I mean, I'm excited about
Sunyani.
the Sunyani edition. I'll be there bringing you all the reports. But before we go, Richie Mensah, Ghanaian singer-songwriter and Chief Executive Officer of Links Entertainment, has shared valuable insight into the music industry during his recent interview on Daybreak Hits with DJ Slim. Responding to rumors about some artists leaving the label, he confirmed that currently only 3 artists have a 360 record deal with Links.
There are 3 artists on a 360 deal. So there's Kiddy, there's DJ Veroski, and there's DSL.
Okay. Wakari also. You know here.
Then when you say 3 artists on 360, it means there are some left who are not on 360.
Yes. So now because we have distribution, anybody can sign on to the distribution. So the 360 deal means we handle everything for you.
Yeah.
That one, if you're Sadat TSF, if we are hungry,
you go get something chop.
Exactly. But the distribution means that we are handling your music going out there. So it can come with advances, but it's not an investment like the label. That's the difference. So the difference between an advance and an investment is, if I invest in you, a share. If it's an advance, it means I know I can make this money back and I'll take it
through certain terms.
Exactly.
Richie Mensah ending the showbiz segment here on Joy News Prime. Brace, we're so grateful for your time. Please, and we're grateful to Pepsodent because they are back.
They're back.
You know.
And I was going to say a word. Your smile.
Brush your teeth with Pepsodent, cavity fighter. Oh, no, I didn't get that right.
Pepsodent,
charcoal, herbal.
Exactly.
Oh, we love Pepsodent. Pepsodent, we love you. And we're so grateful that you're back.
And so people should do it day and night.
Every night.
Yeah,
so this evening, whilst you're going to bed, please brush your teeth
Pepsodent.
with Pepsodent.
Because with Pepsodent, every smile
matters. Please log on to myjoyonline.com also for all the news. We're always grateful that you could join us. Pius Kojo Baka.
Yes, you got it right now.
Yeah, he's up next to a Prime Business. Thank you.
Okay, all right then.